Hey Reddit. What was the best, you have no power here, moment you have ever seen? We have less than 1,000 subscribers. Get us to 1,000 for more daily content.
I taught my 6th grade students about democratic processes. And we ran a simulation. Without fail, every one of my classes tried to impeach me.
Should have played monarchy instead. As long as you don't have a guillotine in your class.
Class simulations always make politics fascinating lol. When I was in grade 8 we were learning about the Russian Revolution. And our teacher did a thing where one student could be czar for the day. They got to sit at the front of the classroom in the teacher's chair and hold a Sailor Moon scepter that lit up. Plus they got one special privilege to exercise during that period. Usually it was that another student would take notes for them or they could skip a small segment. But one of the popular goofy kids decided he wanted to go out in the hallway and have his friends take a running start and fling him as fast as they could down the hall in the teacher's rolling chair. Teacher allowed it. Nobody was hurt. But for some reason we weren't allowed to do czar for the day anymore. The point is, that was an awesome idea to make a boring unit more engaging. 15 years later, I still remember a lot about that class and Russian history because of how fun that class was.
We had an HR lady who was extremely power hungry. She is walking around with the president of the company who flew in from Japan. She rushes him though the warehouse just spits out, "Oh, these are the warehouse guys, we don't have to stop and talk to them." He stops, walks over and starts talking to me about my last vacation. How buying my house went. You could just see her fuming behind him as we talked for almost 45 minutes. I've had multiple meetings with him, we knew each other really well. I don't think he liked her and drug it out on purpose, but I was thrilled to see her just standing there bored as hell.
HR lady doesn't seem to care about human relations.
Sounds like the HR department at the warehouse I used to work at. It always blew my mind because the place was a distribution center. The guys in the warehouse were literally the most important staff in the building. Since we were the ones picking the orders and sending them to the trucks, but any time you had to talk to them, they treated you like a nuisance. Fuckers always had huge lunches and social gatherings and whatnot for the office people. Almost never for us. I didn't feel much sympathy when a huge chunk of everybody in the office got laid off. And not a single order picker lost his job.
When I was working customer service for a restaurant delivery service not unlike DoorDash, I had a customer send in a complaint about hair in their food. The hair was sitting on top of the food. I checked their account, and they had one order on their account, which is a red flag. I check their phone number and find multiple accounts, each other 1 to 2 orders, all of them complaining about hair in the food. I deny a refund because the customer has actually used the same identical photo for the last order since they ordered the same thing. The customer tries to argue with me, threatened to never use the service again. Typical stuff that they always say. Eventually the customer gives up and ends the call, then immediately tries again. I get the support request, see who it is, then deny the refund again. She ends the call, then tries again. The person behind me gets the call. I tap the person on the shoulder and show them what I pulled up on my screen, and that person denies the refund. The next day she calls back and tries again and is outside of the refund window. So the customer demands to speak to a supervisor. The supervisor bans her from the service for multiple fraudulent refund requests.
So we agree. Great.
A coworker friend of mine was flying back from a sales conference in Vegas and he was able to upgrade to a first-class seat. We had this bitch sales VP that was on the same flight. She was the snobby, entitled type with a full-time nanny and giant McMansion in the suburbs. And she generally treated people who worked for her like servants. She sees him in a first-class seat as she is making her way to coach and asks him how he got that seat. He used points to upgrade. As people are getting settled in, she makes her way back up to the first-class cabin and asks to speak with the lead flight attendant. She tells him that one of her underlings is sitting in first class, and that she needs to switch with him since she's higher on the corporate ladder. The guy can't believe what he's hearing, but she won't take no for an answer. Finally he tells her she has to go back to her seat, or she will be escorted from the plane. She made a complete ass of herself in front of the whole first-class cabin.
And to think that is someone's boss rip.
This one just makes me sad. People who really internalize that a corporate ladder has any relation to people's worth are only hurting themselves in the end.
One of my new employees came from a competitor who is, shall we say, not as put together as we are. Her former boss had actually called me to yell at me about poaching his consultants. Which, in and of itself, is weird enough. However, a few weeks after she started, the dude rolled up to our office. He had apparently been calling her to get her to finish an analysis for him and she just ghosted him. I went to the lobby to see what the frick he was doing here. He started in on me again and then she happened to walk by. I didn't fully understand the conversation, but at one point he literally demanded she do this analysis. She just said, "Or what?" and waited a few beats before turning on her heels and walking away. I did the old hand on his back, point to the door universal symbol for leave, or a large security man will make you leave. Never heard from him again.
I've got a similar story. Many years ago, we fired a salesperson. She was a compulsive liar and unethical as hell. She was also living under the delusion that the place would fall apart without her, and that we'd be begging her to come back in a couple of weeks. So it didn't sit too well with her when we hired her replacement. His first day on the job, she calls him up to cuss him out for stealing her job. Later that day, she called corporate. I understand their conversation went like this. That bastard's trying to steal my clients. He's going around town telling people he replaced me. Corporate, he did replace you. Harass him again or any other employees and we're calling the cops. That finally convinced her that we weren't going to be begging her to come back.
Brilliant.
Had an old boss who was a complete and total bastard. He was actually my boss, and wasn't supposed to interact with us unless it was through our boss. But he just loved trying to make everyone under him squirm. The company had forced him to go to training twice because of how he spoke to people. One day, I get a call at home from him and he just starts unloading cursing. Name calling. Insulting over some technical issue he just found out about. After a couple of minutes, I just looked at my phone and hung up on him. The next day, I get called into a meeting with his boss, who basically wants to know who the frick I think I am hanging up on this guy. I calmly explain that no one gets to yell at me on my time. In my home, on my phone. You have to wait for me to be on the clock to pay me for that privilege. And I'll gladly take that money if I'm busy being yelled at. I'm not busy with anything else. Seemed to work.
Brother, you are cool as ice. I am taking notes and slow clapping it out.
This is my next big power move at work. I am working from home. So the next time my boss starts screaming at me, I'm just going to use my best teacher voice to say, when you can match my tone. I will be happy to have this conversation with you, and then I will hang up the call.